Thank you, Mandeep. Appreciate you letting the energy guy crash the tech party here. But as many folks on the call probably know or have heard, energy is really one of the big constraints potentially holding back the AI revolution. If you look at traditional location for where folks like to place data centers here in the U.S., Virginia, Maryland, D.C. area, there are multi-year backlog to get connected to the grid. So folks are getting creative. They're building data centers in places like Texas, and energy is really one of the sort of angles on this story, right? So the pick and shovels of the AI gold rush. So I'm very curious always, when new algorithms or new, more efficient chips come out, because that potentially changes how you think about the energy side of the equation. So if we could go to the first slide. For folks who don't think in power, one thing to probably point out is that in the US, power demand has been pretty flat for a couple of decades. It's not been a growth story. In Europe, power demand's actually been declining. So anything that boosts power demand is sort of a narrative violation. It's a big game changer. And I like to think about this story here with AI, that for every billion or so in capex that gets added to the system, you add about 0.4 terawatt hours of power demand to the grid, just ballpark. And so depending on whether we're in that training scenario or the inference scenario that Mandeep was describing a few slides ago, could potentially put some pretty big differences in terms of the ultimate demand on the grid. And so if you're using 2023 as a baseline, we kind of see 4x to 10x growth from data centers on power demand by 2032. And so in that top line, the blue line that's on the screen, we get to something like 20% of power demand going to data centers. In the more conservative case, which is the more DeepSeek aligned, the more Ant Group aligned kind of scenario, we get these cost efficiencies on chips and algorithms coming through that put you on a much lower pathway. That's more like a 4x increase in power demand. It's that bottom green line. And really, this is a big opportunity in either case, frankly, for folks who are supplying power in the U.S. and elsewhere. So if we could go to the next slide. What kind of power is likely to supply all the build out to meet the AI needs? Well, just point blank, the big types of capacity being added to the grid are basically solar plus battery storage, wind, and then to a much lesser extent, gas and other technologies. So there's a big opportunity here for solar. I know this is a more tech-focused crowd, but if you look at a company like First Solar here in the U.S., they're growing their top line at 30% a year. They're running at about a 50% EBITDA margin right now. So very much a growth company with high margins. We think this adds fuel to the fire for a company like that. Enphase, a company that makes inverters and sells batteries, which also is geared to this thesis. They're growing their top line at 15, 20% and 30% plus EBITDA margins. So there's some interesting companies really geared to the outcome in this space, especially if power demand is going to continue to grow rapidly. Next slide quickly. We are quite aware that you probably cannot meet all of the needs of the energy system with renewables plus battery storage. You probably need gas and some other conventional technologies. So there's a very interesting angle on the commodity front where we think this adds something like 3 to 10 BCF per day of gas demand to the system in the US by 2030. For those who don't think in gas molecules, those are pretty big numbers, kind of rivaling LNG as a sort of key pillar of demand growth. And then the last piece that I want to hit on the last slide is you probably hear a lot about nuclear. I mean, Sam Altman has basically said he thinks a breakthrough in nuclear is needed to help fuel the AI revolution, and others, all the hyperscalers kind of have an angle on nuclear as well. We're a bit more cautious on this front. It takes a long time to get nuclear facilities permitted and built, even if you're talking about SMRs, even if you're kind of waving a magic wand. And this chart shows nuclear generation has been very stable in the US for the last 25 years. Solar and wind, the blue line, are just on a boom. We think wind and solar are going to continue to proliferate very quickly, partially driven by this theme. Nuclear could be very significant, but probably not until you need to think decade plus if your angle is on nuclear. So all of this has very interesting read across into energy markets. So we're excited to generally offer insights on kind of how to read into the energy angle on all of this. And so with that, I'll turn it back over